Welcome to Portman Road. This sound indicates an important announcement.
Hello again, my friends, and you are my friends, and welcome back to the show that got so big it needed extra time. That's right, Talking Town's Extra Time. I'm your host, the Governor. Welcome in. The live chat is already absolutely bouncing. And of course, you would be after the Ibiza Tunes has pumped through your veins on a Monday night. If you felt a little bit of fatigue after your first day back at work, no longer, my friends. You are now well and truly pumped and ready. And we've got a fantastic lineup for you this evening. I can see Nate King is already excited about USA. Absolutely. Ian Davis, welcome in. Evan Taria Pointhurst in a move described as revenge. When I clicked on that, it wasn't what I thought it was going to say. Emerson Ferrer, buzzing for the next chapter in ITFC history. Come on, you Blues. Tony Mann, I'm waiting to find out the secret US investor is Donald Trump. Just see all the fake hair pieces in the stand next season. Absolutely. Well, joining us tonight is a guy that kicked it all off. The madness that has been since Friday. But first and foremost, we have our resident media mogul, the one, the only, here, of course, bring in that Avalon. The answer to all our prayers, Mr. Matthew Phillips. How you doing, Matt?
How are we doing? You all okay?
Excited. We've gone straight to the source. We're going to get all the information we can. You know, it's been absolutely like, someone's threw a grenade into the room. It's just, since Friday, it's just gone mad.
Well, like we've been treading water, haven't we, for 20 years at Ipswich Town, not done anything since we came out of the Premier League. What was it, one or two efforts at the playoffs? And here we are, suddenly with all this, the spotlight's on us again. It's like when we was on the back page of Roy Keane when he took over. It's got that same sense of a new era happening at Portman Road,
When we sat and we did a show after Northampton, 0-0, boring game. One of the worst games I've ever seen in my history of football, let alone anything else.
Yeah.
If I said to you then, right, here's the roadmap, because that's a big sang at the moment, roadmaps. This is the roadmap. We're going to get a takeover possible bill with US Consortium. The guy who's going to lead it is going to be a community-based guy who puts the club, in the heart of the community. Lambert's going to go and beat 2 top 6 sides, then get sacked. Mutual consented. Sorry. You'd have thought I was on those green shoots.
Yeah, exactly. And don't forget, it was less than 2. It was 2 weeks tomorrow. Was that Northampton game? So things have been moving quickly. But we always thought We always thought, I mean, I always said on the podcast, I thought Lambert would be gone by Christmas. That didn't happen. But maybe these things that Matt's going to talk to us about this evening might show the reason why they kept Lambert a little bit longer, maybe.
Okay, absolutely. So tell the guys and girls at home in the chat who's coming on next, and I will bring on our first contributor.
Yeah, it's a guy I first worked with, going back probably 2007, 8, 9, something like that. Used to be at the BBC, now at the Athletic Sports Subscription Service. It's one of their main reporters. It's Matt Slater.
Matt, welcome in.
Hello, everybody.
How you doing?
All right. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I've been getting flashbacks to when we used to do like little press activities on the touchline at Wembley for like FA Cup and things of that nature. That's got to be a good 10 years back, isn't it?
Yeah, at least. Yeah. I, for sure. When did you leave the FA? When did you?
I went in so I was there from 2007 to 2015.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, it would have been, we'd have worked together into the teens, I think.
Yeah.
I didn't leave the BBC till 2016.
Yeah. So about the same time.
Yeah.
Well, on behalf of all the Ipswich fans, we really want to thank you for coming on. We haven't had much to shout about recently. You could well win Player of the Year right now. With a tweet that came out from
has it been like that?
Friday. It's one of the most stellar performances we've had relating to Ipswich. But let me timeline this up for everybody. So there were whispers of a takeover probably a couple of weeks ago on social media. You take these things with a pinch of salt. Then our friends at Blue Monday did an interview with the brilliant Jim White from the Telegraph, who you obviously know, Matt, and he kind of alluded to a takeover in their conversation. And then last Friday, while we were basking in the spring sunshine that was descending across the eastern counties, your tweet landed about 2:15, all change at Ipswich. Brett Johnson, 17.5 million takeover. Evans will wipe out £100 million of debt. Falkirk replaces Paul Lambert. Then the following day, Town beat Doncaster 2-1. Suddenly got this rich vein of forms come out of nowhere. And then Sunday last night, 9 p.m, Lambert leaves Ipswich by mutual consent. And then Monday, Lee O'Neill, who's our director of football operations, he says Evans is not actively looking to sell the club. There isn't an offer on the table, which is what we were kind of expecting from him because he plays more of a straight back than Joe Root. So there we are. So what we really want to know is how long have you been sitting on this story while we've been sort of, lamenting this Lambert regime? How long have you been sitting on this?
Not that long, to be honest. So that's interesting, your timeline, because I didn't know about the Jim White interview. Honestly, so how would I explain this? I heard. So this is kind of my job. I've sort of become the takeover guy at the Athletic. I'm not quite sure why. I quite like the sort of the business of sport. I used to be a financial journalist, so I've always been quite interested in that. A lot of football journalists aren't, so there's an opportunity there, and the Athletic gives me loads of space to sort of talk about politics and governance and money and all that, right? So I spend a lot of time talking to brokers, agents, lawyers, bankers, people that the football industry is growing, right? And it's growing all the time. It's very global now. And funny enough, it's kind of whilst it's growing, it's still a small world. It's still sort of driven by rumor and gossip in the same way that everything else is, same way that transfers are. So, but now we're talking about trading clubs. So that's sort of what I do. And I heard probably about 2 weeks ago that I'll cut to the chase. That Mark Ashton, who is the Bristol City chief executive, was fronting a US group. Did I even know US at that point? No, that came a bit later. Was fronting a takeover of Ipswich Town. And to be honest with you, I had been looking because I'd heard some other stuff about Bristol City, and I thought, well, that's really interesting. Why is the chief executive of Bristol City, a good championship club, who have just spent a lot of money on their ground, just about to open a new training ground? This was before they'd appointed Pearson. It was around the time they appointed Pearson, or maybe, I can't remember. It was around that time. But a club that have been in the mix, they have a very wealthy owner. I was thinking, right, that's a bit odd. And also, Ashton is on the EFL board. He is one of the Championship's 3 club representatives on the board. And I just thought, this is weird. And as I said, I was interested in Bristol City because I just think they're quite an interesting story. They've got this link with the rugby club, not a link. They are part of the same group and the basketball team. And Stephen Lansdowne, their owner, is this ludicrously wealthy man. And I thought, well, this is interesting. What's happening here? Is Lansdowne leaving? Is this Ashton jumping ship? I'm going to have a look at Bristol. And sort of nothing. I didn't really get anywhere with that. But then I heard the rumour again, and I thought, right, okay, Ipswich. Right. And I heard it because I heard it from a different source. And I think maybe that time I heard the American bit. And I thought, right, well, there's something going on here. Maybe Ashton isn't really the interesting bit of it. Maybe he's part of the story. And that sort of went on for like sort of 4 or 5 days. I did actually start to see then that some Ipswich Town fans had heard it as well. And Ashton was around. But then on the Monday before I published the story, but by this point, I'd heard the same rumor at least 3 times from different people, and I'd started to hear more about this American group. Still didn't know who it was, and I was now pretty much trying everybody I knew who might be putting together an American group, advising an American group, because buying and selling clubs is still relatively rare. It doesn't happen that often. We've only had 3 or 4 in the last year. And they tend to be long and protracted. Wigan hasn't been sold yet. It took ages to get Sunderland over the line. It can go on and on. I just thought, well, people do find out, right, eventually. And then, to cut a long story short, it's already a long story. Basically, somebody else. This is where we're going to get to the Lee O'Neill bit, which I did see today, and I thought I'd save my bit for you guys. Not only is there one offer on the table, there's more than one offer on the table. And Lee O'Neill either is out of the loop and just doesn't know what's going on, or he's fibbing. And I don't mind either, to be honest. And they're both plausible and credible in that Mark Evans is selling this. He doesn't have to tell his staff if he doesn't want to. And everyone signed NDAs in these things, and Lee O'Neill isn't part of the conversation. He's fobbing off the local paper. Either's fine. But to say there's no offer on the table is I'm sorry, it's nonsense. There is. I know of 2, because how I find out about the Americans is by the other party. The lot that have been talking to Evans as well for months. Yeah, and didn't get it or changed their mind. They were the ones that filled me in a lot of the gaps, and then I was able to then, once I had the name, reach out to American colleagues and American contacts to go, all right, who are this lot? So that was it. Yeah,
that was it in a nutshell. So it's Fortuitous Partners, isn't it? It's being led by Brett Johnson.
Yeah.
I think he's got is it Burkay, the hedge fund, Burkay Capital, the Turkish, I think.
There's a few interesting names in there. Well, so this is quite typical of US sport and really typical of US soccer from what I can tell. So these quite large ownership groups. So I suppose Fenway Sports Group's a really good example. There are about 12, 15 investors in there, and they're all on their own, quite interesting guys, successful guys. The ownership group at Phoenix Rising is similar, maybe a division down, but in that there's a mixture of property investors, hedge fund guys, a lot of West Coast money, a lot of LA people, mixed with wealthy people from Arizona. And Phoenix is one of the largest cities. It's a big metropolitan area. I think it's about 4 million people. And a good soccer scene, a good sports town. The problem it has is weather. It's hot. It's too hot to play football. So that's one of the reasons why they've struggled to get into the MLS. You have to buy your way into the MLS. It's as I'm sure there's no promotion and relegation. So anyway, they 4 or 5 years ago, Brett Johnson, who, as I said, has a property fund, has an investment fund. One's called Benevolent, I think. One's called Fortuitous. But anyway, and he has various partners. They bought a USL team, a second division US team called Arizona United. Pretty quickly, he brought some more partners in. They rebranded in 2016 to Phoenix Rising, and he's done, by all accounts, a really good job there. He's turned them into a very successful USL team, and probably the best. They haven't, they have like a regular season, then they have a final season playoff. It hasn't worked out for them in the playoffs, but I think 2 years ago they were the best team in the regular season. And he's also, two really interesting things. He's built a stadium, so that's one of the things that they're always obsessed about doing in the States, to build a soccer specific stadium, so they're not playing in exactly, and it helps you get in the MLS. So he has, in terms of things I'm interested in. Does this guy deliver? Well, they're not an MLS team yet. They're in the queue. He's got them into a stadium, 10,000. I hear it's good. He's made them successful, and he's brought some big names in. So I guess the two that are most interesting to us would be Sean Wright-Phillips and Didier Drogba. Didier Drogba finished his career with them. He retired at sort of 40. After playing a season, a season and a half, it's only a season with Phoenix Rising, and actually they gave him some shares as well. So he's a minority shareholder in Phoenix Rising, and the ownership groups. Not only is it big, it's quite interesting. There's Diplo, who I had to look up, is a big DJ apparently, and a music producer and songwriter, and the bass player from Fall Out Boy, Pete Wentz, is in this group. So this again is a very sort of about. Kind of a story about American soccer. It's cool, right? You find strange people in these ownership groups because it's that kind of where entertainment and fashion and celebrity meets. So that's not that unusual. So that's who they are. To be fair to Brett Johnson, he is also involved in another USL team, a team that hasn't launched yet. And I think this is very much a sort of kind of probably his day job a little bit as well, because it's very much a property play. It's in Rhode Island, so different part of the country, different weather, a place called Pawtucket, but it's a really, really big property development with a sort of soccer team, and he's involved in that as well. Now, so that's his background. He looks like an interesting sort of guy. Oh, he's also he's a director of the Danish team Helsingør, which has other Americans in there as well. I think they're about. I did look at their results the other day. I think they're third or fourth in the Danish league. Yeah, they're doing all right. And in that ownership group, there's a guy called Jordan Gardner who's an investor in Dundalk and Swansea. So look, this is the way things are going. You get these kind of minority investors, and they learn a little bit here, and then they have a go over there. And so, Brett Johnson's an interesting guy. I think he's learned. He's. I don't think he's a complete football expert. I think he knows quite a lot about running a stadium, running a sport franchise. I think he has a track record of then hiring good people, which I think is what you kind of want. If he doesn't know himself, then he's going to hire good people. The Phoenix Rising, by all accounts, have been well run. He's a co-chair there. He's not, he's not like a dictator or anything. And in this group that I think I strongly believe are going to buy Ipswich Town, two of his other main investors are involved. One you've mentioned, Berke Bakay, who I think is more of a football fan. I think he's of Turkish descent, and
Galatasaray fan, I believe, Matt.
Yeah,
I think exactly. He's Galatasaray. Hence the reason why they got Drogba.
Right. Well, there you go. That makes sense. So I think he sounds like the football enthusiast. I think there's another guy called Mark Detner who I don't know much about. He's another. I think he runs a big fund in LA. I think. So these are all wealthy, successful guys. Are they all multimillionaires in their own right? I don't know. I suspect not. I suspect they're all wealthy guys, but they're not Marcus Evans, right? No. But they don't need to be. This is because they're an ownership group. So, don't panic. And as well, I think we've worked out a bit more. Even at the time I was writing it, and obviously then you have to put it to both parties. And I was a bit worried about the whole Mark Ashton thing, because I initially thought Ashton really was going to come, and I had to put that to Bristol City, and there was a bit of pushback about that. And I'd obviously embarrassed Ashton a bit because I don't know how forthcoming he'd been with them. So in the ownership group, they set up a company, which I'm sure Ipswich Town fans have already found on Company's House, called Game Changer 20 Limited. It's those guys are there. an interesting guy called Mike O'Leary, and this is where I think we get the Ashton link, and where we get
This is what I was going to say to you. Yeah, Mike O'Leary. Yeah, Oxford,
and previously for him for West Brom. So, and he's a sort of serial entrepreneur, as far as I can tell. Loads of directorships, and fine. Yeah, nothing untoward there at all whatsoever. He, I now understand that he is way more important to Ipswich Town than Ashton. He has kind of put this together. He's been the guy on the ground, and I've seen this a number of times now, where overseas investors, they're looking for something, right? They have a budget, and they have a kind of where they'd like to be, and here's my narrative. Here's I want to do player trading. I'm interested in data and analytics. I want this kind of fan base. And then guys here in the UK or whatever country they're looking at sort of do the rest. And I think Mike O'Leary is that guy, a guy that knows the football industry pretty well. So I'm told he's going to be very involved. Okay. Ashton less so. I think Ashton has got a pretty good gig, and I think is perhaps slightly embarrassed, I think, by
given his current role.
He's got a good job, and look, Pearson's they've improved as well. So
Yeah. So why Ipswich, do you think, Matt? Why, like we were chatting about earlier, we've spent 20 years treading water. We've got to the playoffs twice in that time. Marcus Evans has had kind of deep pockets and short arms, not really invested as much as we'd wanted to. Why Ipswich when there's obviously lots of other clubs that they could be interested in?
That's a good question, and this is the sort of thing that I spend a lot of time talking, writing, thinking about. I could say, why not Ipswich, right? So let's just say you are the kind of investor that I've just explained, someone who doesn't quite have the money to buy an MLS franchise. So the most recent MLS franchise, I think, was Charlotte, not a big market, and I think it went for $350 million. That's what it costs now to buy into the MLS. The MLS is a loss-making league. No team in the MLS is making money. Right, so they're all banking on this ludicrous long-term play that the World Cup in 2026 is going to change the story for soccer in the States. It might do, it might not. But all American sports franchises cost that. There's been this ludicrous inflation going on for 20 years. So to buy into Major League Baseball or NFL, you're talking billions. So they're not that rich. So they have a budget, which kind of probably means that certainly the big six in the Premier League, probably the top half of the Premier League, is out of their budget. So then you're thinking, okay, well, do I spend 100, 250 million, 200 million on a Burnley, a West Brom, a Southampton, a Watford? What do all these clubs have in common, right? I'll tell you what they have in common. They're yo-yo clubs, and they're worth 150 to 200 million when they're in the Premier League. And then they're worth 50 million when they're in the Championship. And they're always about 2 or 3 seasons away from getting relegated, even when they're looking good. And I could tell you 10 of these stories. Swansea, Sunderland. But you look absolutely established and safe until you're not. And before long, you can be in League One or League Two, as you guys have experienced. So there's a hell of a lot of jeopardy of buying a middle to lower tier Premier League team, and there's a massive difference in the price. So then, okay, all right, fine, don't do that, don't be stupid, buy a Championship club. All right, so then you're looking at 40, 50, depending on the club, depending on the amount of debt, the fan base, and what have you. But what's the Championship? The Championship is financial insanity. These clubs lose 10, 15, 20 million a year, and it's not a fair fight for a lot of them, because they're going up against 7 or 8 teams that are on parachute payments. They're going up against guys like Lansdowne and the guys at Stoke who run the company who are healthier than Premier League owners. So a lot of foreign investors look at the Championship and go, I'm not sure about that. So then it's sort of League One. Well, look at some of the clubs in League One we've got, and look at who's just been, Sunderland. Sunderland was the last deal before you guys. Hull are for sale at pretty much the same price tag as you guys. And Hull and Ipswich, I understand that a lot of the people that have looked at Hull have looked at Ipswich and vice versa, because it's pretty much the same story. It is a club that in memory has been in the Premier League, has a fan base of 20,000. Big. I know your fan base is bigger, but that will come regularly. Maybe it's 25, 30 when you're in the Premier League, but rarely dips below a level. It's at the end of a long road. You've got quite a good catchment area, but you don't own your ground. Now, there's a lot of similarities between you two.
Yeah.
Now they've been there more recently than you, but I would say that you are, to people of my age, you feel like a bigger club than Hull City.
Yeah,
right.
The history that comes with it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of you tick a lot of boxes. You know, you have a good catchment area. You've got a loyal fan base. You're in the southeast, which helps. I know you're at the end of the A12, which doesn't, but you're still in the southeast, and there is a cachet to foreign investors in particular about the southeast because they're obsessed with how close you are to London and transport links. You've got a good story to tell, the 80s and late 70s and Sir Bobby and all that. And I think this is one question that I'd like to ask you guys, because I think the price is a bit high, and I wrote 17 and a half. I've since learned that it's a bit more than that. I know there's been a number knocking around about 30. It's not 30. It's between 17. It's been about 18 and 30. And there's some wiggle room still to be decided, I think, in terms of one that I think Evans is going to hold on to 5%. He's holding on to some of the property around the training grounds. So there's a few bits still to be sorted out that will obviously affect the price. But that's a lot of money to spend on a business that has been losing 7 or 8 million, 9 million pounds a year. That's not what happens in business, where you value companies and shops and stuff. You do a sort of you look at the ins and outs and go, okay, well, I'm buying a loss-making business. I'll give you £1. I'm going to take this off your hands. I'm going to do you a favour.
Yeah,
you should thank me. But football doesn't really work like that. Football valuations don't work like that, because you're buying goodwill and you're buying the loyalty of you lot, and you're buying the potential that you've been in the Premier League, and in the Premier League we can make some money. But that's what you're buying. Is Ipswich a credible Premier League club? And I'd like to, if Norwich are, you are, right? Yeah. So, but it's a hell of a long journey to get there. So this is where I have some issues about the price and about their plan, which I think we're going to have to learn a lot more about. I don't know all their plan. I imagine, because this is what every single American investor in particular, but overseas investors, but every single American investor tends to say two things. I can do better than the last lot commercially. I think British people don't really know how to run sports franchises. I can market it better. So we even had that at Burnley. I'm going to turn Burnley into, what was it, the world's favourite underdog. Right, good luck. Right, Burnley's only important to people in Burnley. So by all means, try and flog Burnley. Go for it. I reckon if you do really, really well, you'll take their commercial income from 16 million to 16.5, and you'll probably probably lose that in the ways that you've paid an amazing marketing guy to come up with ideas. But anyway, good luck. The other thing that loads of American investors are convinced of, and I think there might be some more evidence here. It's not entirely tested yet, and there have been a lot of failures. Data and analytics. They are convinced that you can make money on player trading, and this is the difference they have with American sport. They don't really do that, because you have the draft and you trades and all that sort of stuff, and you have free agency and you have everything's transparent. So the transfer system really interests Americans, and they're just starting to get into it in MLS now. So one club in particular, it's called FC Dallas, have invested loads and loads and loads in their academy over the last 4 or 5 years. Once upon a time, they used to take kids from college. They realized that they were getting the kids too late. By 2021, they've got bad habits. They're no good. You need them at 16, 17, as we know here in Europe, 15, 14, and don't go to college. Come to our academy, fast track to the first team, and or we'll sell you. This, I think, is where I suspect their focus will go initially. They will, I think, spend a lot of time, money, thought on improving your recruitment, player development, all that kind of thing. And it ends. The guys at Burnley have said the same thing. The guys at almost every single club bought by an American tends to say this. And some of it's to do with their interest. You know, they are data analytical guys. That's what they do for a living. American sport lends itself well to data and analytics. You know, they're competing on level playing fields, and it's all about, well, I'm just going to recruit better than you. I'm better at spotting talent than you. And then, look, I'm not saying the Americans are the only ones that have the secret here, because Brentford are a really good example. Matthew Benham, you know, is a master at this. You know, Brighton have done a good job. Lots of other clubs are doing it. It's just, well, from the outside in, but have Ipswich been doing it? I remember you used to have a really good academy, and I seem to remember loads of people coming through Ipswich, into the noughties. I must admit, unless there's one I've missed, has there been a big one in the last 10 years? Kieran Dyer, was he the last one? I don't know.
Probably Connor Wickham, wasn't it?
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Wickham.
We found Tyrone Mings at Chippenham Town.
Oh, okay.
Gave him 10 grand. He came into our system and we sold him on there, but you know, he wasn't right from our academy. But yeah, they've been few and far between, Matt, basically.
Yeah. Well, that's something. There's an obvious win, right? And obviously they will be thinking in terms of the Premier League. Of course, so. I mean, why be involved in sport if you're not thinking in those terms? But they will know that to get to the Premier League is going to cost them. Well, I mean, look, you said that Marcus Evans had short arms, right? But he's lost 100 million quid.
Yes.
Now, I know no one's going to feel sorry for him. He's got a white roller, and I understand he can be a bit difficult. But I've never met the guy. I don't think anyone who has. I don't know. But
I've met him.
Oh,
very
right,
briefly.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, at Watford. Sat behind him at Vicarage Road. Yeah.
Well, he has lost 100 million pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not
a wedge. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think he's going to be missed or mourned, but that's a hell of a lot of money. You know, he has tried. I know he hasn't tried so much recently, but
do you think he's fed up, Matt? Do you think he's fed up? That's why he wants to get rid of. He's been speaking 6 months plus to invest.
I think it's at least 6 months. It's at least 6 months.
Yeah.
I mean, these things take a while. Yeah. I don't. It's really hard to say. I think everyone has a limit. So a really good example, another story that I've been working on a lot over the last few months is Derby County and Mel Morris. And there are similarities. I don't know so much about Marcus Evans, so I should probably not speak out of turn. But Mel Morris is a really classic case of this. He is your sort of Jack Walker, Dave Whelan type. He's made a lot of money. He's still a very wealthy guy. People might know him because of the Candy Crush game. He invested in the company that made Candy Crush. He's a local boy. He's from Derby. The thing he wanted to do with his money was to get Derby back to the Premier League. He's £100 million down as well, and he's still digging. Right? He's struggling. He's trying to sell it now because, you know, it hits them all eventually. What am I doing? And he's also making him unwell. I don't think Marcus has that situation, but you know, Mel Morris is, you know, it's affecting his health. So they all come to a point, and if it's not them, it'll be people near them, family, wives, friends, doctors, saying, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
So that and things like, look, I'm not close enough to the situation. I don't know how bad things have got for Evans. Does Evans goes to games? Does he get crap at games? I don't know.
He generally sits in the box of Leo Neal. They kind of come
right. Okay.
I kind of think of them as Waldorf and Statlow. Remember them from the Muppets? Just like looking down.
So he can still
things.
go. So it's not got so bad that he can't go.
Yeah.
Because it can get that bad at other places where and that's when you've got to walk away. If you can't even go to the thing that you own and the thing that you're basically bankrolling, then what is the point? But I think kind of get the relegation. I can sort of see that would seem to be like a natural point to admit that it's not working and going. But then you start to chase it a bit. You start to think, well, I don't want to sell now because I'll be selling at a discount. I need to get them back into the Championship, then sell. But then, you know, it's just good money after bad. So, you know, it's look, as I said, the Hull City, they've been for sale ever since they had that massive falling out over their name change. Remember, he wanted to call them.
I worked on that.
Well, there you go. Yeah. The FA said no, rightly so. So he fell out with everybody about that, and there was something to do with the season tickets as well. So he managed to, again, local guy. He's from Egypt, but came to Hull, made his fortune in Hull. Big employer in Hull, has done loads for the university and the hospitals. A wonderful story, and then he falls out over football, and he won't sell because he's convinced that he must get his money back. And the old man's unwell, and his son is like, "Well, Dad, can we just sell? Can we just get out of this?" But you get assessed. You're in a hole, and you're like, "Well, I'm not selling out because I'll be making a loss." Yes, the loss is going to be bigger next year.
Yeah, and admitting to defeat to your objectives, which is happened to Evans, because I feel like, Matt, his game plan was quite good when he come in, because he obviously felt, if I get Keane in and Keane gets us to the Premier League, then you can leverage into that old Man United audience that sits in Asia, it sits in Malaysia and Thailand and all that. We'll do the pre-season tour over there, the Asia Cup and all that kind of thing. It kind of made sense, but unfortunately, we didn't hit the objective that he wanted, was to get promoted, and it all fell apart. So I feel like he's probably he kind of lost his game plan there a little bit, I think, quite early on in the game.
Look, he made a big high-profile signing. That was his guy. Pushed the boat out to get. I don't know, because I wasn't following your club closely enough. Did he give Keane money to spend as well?
Yeah, he did.
And did Keane blow it? I mean, what happened?
Yeah, Lee Martin.
He brought in Carlos Edwards, he brought in Grant Ledbetter and a few others. So he did spend a lot of money, and it's quite interesting. And he gave a little bit of money to Jewel, who followed, and then he when McCarthy come in, it was kind of like tightening the string, the purse strings, which is unfortunate, because I feel if McCarthy had been given some money, look what he's doing at Cardiff right now.
I know. He's an underrated manager, Mick McCarthy. I know he's not sexy football, but.
Do you see Marcus trying to keep hold of this 5% and the property around Bent Lane as his way of almost passing the steering wheel over and saying, look, I've tried my best. If you can make it a bigger success than I can, at least I still profit and get these losses back.
So I think we're going to see a lot of this. And there are two really good examples. They are the two most recent clubs to be sold, right? So at Burnley, which was run by 5 or 6 local guys. I think it was 6 local guys who didn't put a penny in or take a penny out. They did an unbelievable job. Burnley were like my story for whenever I wanted to praise a Premier League club for being sustainable. I used to go, Burnley, look at them. Yeah. Right. And they still are sustainable. It's fine. But the local directors on the way out cashed in. Okay, we'll take our on the way out. But the two main ones have retained minority shareholdings in the club, and in fact they didn't. Those 5 or 6 main directors didn't even own all the shares anyway. There's a sort of group of old-fashioned shareholders, that would have a share certificate on your toilet wall type thing. There's regular fans who all bought £1,000 worth of shares when Burnley almost went bust. So those guys are still there. The American guys own, I can't remember, 84, I think it might be 84%. But Mike Garlick and the other guy, who I can't remember now, have held small shareholdings, right? So that they've still got some skin in the game, as they say in financial circles. And one that kind of keeps them around the table, but does give them that little upside. So what happens if Burnley really kick on, right? And get sold for 400 million in 10 years' time because the TV rights have gone insane and Burnley are now an established member of the Premier League. Well, there's another payday there, right? Now, Sunderland's the other example. And I think, there are similarities between your situation and their situation in that you're both slumming it, aren't you? You're at least a division too low, right?
Yeah.
Now, the difference I mentioned Sunderland in my story, and I am intrigued by why Sunderland or not Sunderland, and why you, because Sunderland own their ground. They're a Cat 1 academy. Now, unfortunately, they've denuded the academy. There's nothing in it. They've sold everybody, but it's still a Cat 1 academy, and it's a decent patch. But there's a lot of issues and problems and things hidden in the weeds at Sunderland. So I think that would scare people off. And the key thing is that the 3 shareholders haven't gone. The three before. So Charlie Methven, Stuart Donald, and Juan Sartori, the stars of the Netflix documentary, are still there. And why are they there? Why are they there? Because if this new guy, the Kirill Louis Dreyfus, with all the money, gets them back to the Premier League, ka-ching.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
So if you can hold on, you don't need to be in charge anymore. You don't want to be on the hook anymore.
Yeah.
If you can hold some shares, well then 5% of a big number's not bad.
Yeah. Of course, that Dreyfus family are kind of synonymous with Marseille, aren't they? I think that's where his father was.
He's got 5% there. Yeah. He's a minority shareholder. His family's a minority shareholder in Marseille, but he's bought. Yeah. We're not quite sure. They're being a bit cagey with the numbers, but he's bought a good old chunk of Sunderland, about 60%, I think.
Yeah. So, let's see if we can get down to the end of the road here a little bit, Matt. When would you expect the Fortuitous partners, Brett Johnson, when do you expect it all to come together and the sale to go through? What would you predict?
I don't know. I don't want to tie myself to a prediction. I did hear when I wrote the story that it was very soon. And people were a little bit, oh no, you found out, it's got out, because they were really pleased that for 6 months no one had talked. All parties had signed NDAs. The Americans, I think, are a little bit anxious that people are blabbing now. I think because the best takeovers are the ones you get a press release about and say it's just happened. All right,
it happens.
Yeah, those are the perfect takeovers. Derby. Well, we've had 3 or 4 failed time. We've had time wasters. Wigan. They've been to the EFL with different groups to do the ODT test, the owners and directors test. Too much talking. The serious ones don't talk. So I think it's really, really close. I don't know how close. I get the impression that the Americans want to get on with it. They are that they're raring to go. That they want to get started.
So certainly the guys that you know from the Guardian, Paul Doyle and Nick Ames, were saying that they thought it might be more like maybe days more than maybe weeks. But
I did hear that. I did it, but I don't want to sort of say it. I don't want to, nail my colours to the mast. I've heard days as well. Yeah.
Is the second party definitely out, or is there any way that they could, if they do you know they are?
I know who some of their advisors are. I don't know who they are. It could well be more, but I think they are out. They pulled out a few weeks ago when they realised that the Americans were in.
Big, okay.
And where do you see? Look, you've been great for us, Matt. The people are loving you in the comments here. I really appreciate it. I don't want to keep you all night because I know you're a busy guy. But let's just think. We've got Paul Cook waiting in the wings, we're told, which is one of the things you alluded to in your story. Now, this is quite interesting timing for me, because normally with a takeover, you'd keep the current manager, and then he would go when the new guys come in. But we've got a position here where Lambert's gone and Cook's in the wings. Do you think this is the Americans and Evans coming together to put this new manager here?
It might be, but I don't know that. I couldn't hand on heart tell you that. You're right. It could go either way. You do often hear this thing where the new lot come in and they're almost working in concert with the new owner, and just because they're dotting I's, and there are various things you got to do. You can be almost in effective control, and you could be starting to make decisions. And there are definitely there've been some examples of that. I don't know that is this. I get the impression that Lambert and Evans was a row waiting to happen. I'm sure you've heard the rumours that it all kicked off, and things were said that can't be unsaid, and all that. So there was an argument to say that you could have kept him in place, just keep a lid on things, let the new lot take over, appoint their guy when they want to appoint them. But then if the relationship has got so bad at the top that someone's kind of got to go, then why wait? Particularly if the new lot are like, we quite like the sound of him. Yeah, we're not going to fire the guy that you just hire now. I think, do you go caretaker? And I think the other thing is, and again, this, you and your fans would know this more than I do, because I'm not following your results on a weekly basis. You could go up this season.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So if there's a really good manager out there, and Paul Cook is a really good manager, I have seen bits of his work. I sort of followed Wigan towards the end of last season. because of their, the story around Wigan, the points they got relegated with a positive goal difference, and they were a really good team. They were a really exciting team, and he also became a great spokesperson for the club because he was about the only one that could talk during that whole process. So he's a good guy, as far as I could tell. If he's out there and everyone agrees that he's a good manager, well, just get him in, right? Because you could go up this year.
Yeah. Exactly. I think he's from Liverpool. I see kind of like an echo of Joe Rowe a little bit. He's kind of a jovial character. I think he likes a little bit of a laugh. Yeah. With Lambert, we've seen quite a dour figure in these last few months. So I feel like Ipswich fans would probably want to Paul Cook, and he'll play a good brand of football, hopefully. And I think those glimmers of sunlight will be over Portman Road again, hopefully.
Yeah, I think so. Look, and he's got an amazing track record of promotions. I knew that he had a few, and I didn't realise that he'd taken 3 up as champions.
Yeah, Chesterfield being the other one.
Yeah, and so he's won this league 2 years ago, wasn't it? 2019. So brilliant.
Yeah,
could there be a better candidate for the type of person you need right now? Someone who has won your league.
Yeah.
Something you mentioned earlier was about why would you buy Ipswich? And then you said about the Americans, and they've got 2 trains of thought, and one of them was the commercialisation of a club. With your expertise and your knowledge, what does that mean for Ipswich? Because you got Portman Road, but you don't own it. Like, what do you think the Americans coming in that would hold, and what that would mean for the fans listening today?
So this is really, because again, this is sort of one of the things that I often push back on when I hear this, because it's such a glib thing for them to say. We're going to do this. Okay, what are you going to do? Because I think a lot of them have this idea. When you go to an American sports stadium, everything is covered with an advert, or every break is the taxi firm 5-minute timeout or whatever it is. You've got some adverts here around the screen. That's good. So everything's branded, and they think, well, we're going to do that, right? We can flog everything. Now that apparently was very much what the Glazers thought when they went to United. They were like, what? There are things. There are walls with nothing on them. I'm going to put an advert there. You come to my stadium in Tampa Bay, we've got 400 advertisers there, and a lot of the Brits sort of go, yeah, but look, do you not? Okay, I could maybe get 50 quid for something there, but we have like half a dozen partners, and they're better partners, and they're long-term relationships, and we get more money out of them. And so there's different schools of thought. There's this sort of like slap a logo on it school of thought. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that these guys are that daft, but I do hear that's literally what they mean. European football franchises, professional sports franchises, do not know how to sell themselves, do not know that they have this amazing shop window, this sandwich board, right? So that's one part of it. The other part, which I think is more interesting, and it's probably more relevant, well, I'll say for Premier League, but certainly you guys, I think, in the Championship would tick this box as well. If you're American, your favorite sports are sort of kind of baseball, American football, hockey, those sort of things. They're massive. They're the biggest things. If you want to sell anything in North America, which is why their TV deals are ludicrous, because everything else we're time shifting. We don't sit down to watch TV anymore, apart from sport or government or elections. Those are things that you cannot risk time shifting that, can you? Because then you'll be out, oh no, I don't know the result. So you have to watch sport live. So advertisers like that. Now, they love the fact that football is global. It's one of the reasons why they've all kind of got into it. Big wealthy guys, the Glazers, the Fenway Sports Group, etc. That their sports are massive in North America. They're as big as they can be. But no one cares in China, India, Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, and on and on and on and on. Africa, South America. No one cares. They care about our sport. They care about girly soccer. They want some of that. They're like, right, if I've got a product that is global, am I going to put it on in basketball? Basketball's a bit different because basketball is global, but American football, ice hockey, does well in Canada, Russia, no, doesn't do it. But people in Russia aren't going to watch or buy your product. But soccer's global. That's it. So it's a when they say commercial, they really mean two things. You're not selling your assets well enough. I can sell more, put more adverts out, and I can do that better than you can because we just do that well in America. And you're underestimating how big soccer is and the platform that every good soccer team has.
Okay, wow, this is exciting stuff. I'm literally like a kid in a candy shop.
But it's all theory. So they all say that. So can I remind you of some of the clubs that are owned by Americans? So Swansea, very similar profile of guys, went into Swansea and and they got relegated and they're stuck in the Championship. Okay, they've learned a lot along the way. But they've lost a lot of money along the way. Sunderland, Ellis Short, so very successful, very, very successful investor. Spent a fortune on Sunderland. 2 relegations.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Aston Villa, Randy Lerner, very, a credit card, family, entrepreneur, owns Cleveland Browns. Lost his shirt. So there are so many cautionary tales. I don't want to end on the downside. I know because you're very excited. I think these guys are clever. I think the fact that they've learnt in the States, in the USL, I think is a really good thing for you guys, because they sort of understand the importance of their fan base, because there's no TV money in USL, but there's some TV money in MLS. So anyone that's running a relatively successful USL team at least understands how to run a facility, like a stadium, and understands how to do commercial deals in the area. So they have got a track record there.
Matt, should we get used? We floated this to our mutual friend Kate Riley yesterday. Should we get used to Portman Road being called something else? The Dunkin' Donuts Arena, whatever it might be.
Well, so there are 2 things to say about that. Yes, they would love to do that because it's a revenue stream that an American. So they'd get someone in and go, okay, well, you're just leaving money on the table there. What's wrong with you? Of course you should do naming right deals. You should do a naming right deal for your training ground as well. This is what they all say that. And that increasingly, that's happening elsewhere in European football as well. There are problems though. So naming rights deals tend to be a bit disappointing for old builds for 2 reasons. One is that everyone ignores the new name and carries on calling it Portman Road. Yeah. Well, that's the main reason, really. I mean, the successful ones are the ones where there hasn't been a name yet. So the most famous example of this is Arsenal, right? So when they moved from Highbury, they worked really, really hard not for a name to stick. So people were calling it like the geographic name. I can't remember what London it was now. What was the name of it was an incinerator there before. Can't remember now. It was something Grove. What was it called? Oh, it doesn't matter. But in all their communications, they kept talking about it as the new stadium. And it was a conscious decision that a name cannot be attached to the new stadium because we're going to sell it the minute we can. In fact, they need the money from the Emirates up front. They took Emirates on the naming rights and also on the shirt, and they front loaded that deal to fund the stadium build. And very similar at the Etihad as well. So the name, the Eastlands and the Commonwealth Games and all that stuff didn't really stick, did it? So it's worked at those 2. Would it work at Portman Road? Would you call it by the new name? And if you look at like all the little itsy bitsy club, well, yeah. So that's the problem with naming rights deals for stadiums that have. Yeah. No one's ever going to call Anfield anything other than Anfield or Old Trafford, are they? Well, they haven't done it.
Yeah. Well, Matt, you've given us a great amount of time. People have absolutely loved it. It's Ashburton Grove. Johnny Duncan in the chat there.
There you go. I knew it was something Grove. It was something Grove.
You do it. Well, we've got to thank you so much for coming on and giving up your evening to come and chat to us. We really appreciate it. Subscribe to The Athletic, everybody. It's a great sports subscription service. I think there's a deal on at the moment. I think it's like £1 or something. So get on there, and there's lots of great lines like that.
Actually, sorry. Wait for the next deal. They come round.
Yeah, there's lots of great insight like Matt has given us here. Lots of great journalists on the old school journalists. Fantastic. Thank you, Matt.
Cheers, Matt.
Right,
thank you, mate.
All the best.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. But you only get to but you only get to those points by being a good team. Like people only want to have your training ground named after their company if you're really good. So you've got to get to that point first. I'm going to bring in Graeme and Tux. Welcome in, guys. The line's now open for those that want to join us and have their say. A lot to unpack there from a wonderful chap and a wonderful interview. Tux, kick us off. What are your first sort of thoughts there?
Yeah, well, I think it's obviously great that he's had time to come on. Obviously, that's great from Matt to get him on, and yeah, really insightful bit there, really from Matt. So yeah, it's interesting to see obviously his opinion. I mean, he's obviously not a fan, but he's obviously a well recognised football journalist, financial journalist as well, and his opinion from an outsider's point of view on the club itself. Not only what's happening currently in the last week or so, but also what's been happening in the last 10 years as well as other football clubs as well with the MLS and also the new regime potentially as well. So yeah,
Graeme, you've seen this club at its best. Are you starting to think maybe we can get back there again? Is this giving you some hope, something to hang your hat on?
I think after listening to Matt just being on, that actually makes you believe that it could actually be happening. I mean, it's a real roller coaster of emotions. I mean, I actually called it last year or last season when Evans, for some reason, persevered and gave Lambert his 5-year contract in the middle of where we were up in the top 1 or 2 and then started losing game after game after game. And I called then that if Evans and Lambert as that deadly duo remained for the next 3 years, we'd be in serious danger of going into the conference. That's how concerned I was, because I personally felt when the news came in about the salary cap in Division 1 and Division 2 coming in, I just had that gut feeling, did Evans really want promotion? Because at the end of the day, for us to go up, the cost of transfer fees, because you'd need to buy some players because the squad we've got at the moment are far too inadequate, and also the salaries. So I felt, it was almost an excuse, which has backfired anyway now, because obviously the salary cap doesn't look like it's going to go ahead. But you were looking that Evans could hide behind that 2.5 million salary cap each year. I mean, no one doubted in those first couple of years when he threw some money at it, his aim was to go into the Premier League, get his foot in the door of the directors, and because he's a marketing hospitality type company. But then, he had his ample opportunity with McCarthy. We all loved him to start with, but then hated him at the end. But that year when we ended up playing Norwich in the playoff semi-finals, we drew 1-1 quite deservedly down at Portman Road. We then went 1 down when Barra got sent off rightfully because he handballed right in front of me. But even then, Tommy Smith, I think it was, equalised in the second half, and we lost 3-1, I think it was, in the end. But you were looking at a team that had just come down from the Premier League, Norwich, who'd got about 38-40 million pounds worth of fees, and we'd got, I think it was 130,000, was it Sears and Mings, I think, were the only two that we paid any fees. But we were effectively in a playoff semi-final. Over 4 halves, we were 1 half inferior to Norwich, who had spent a lot more money. So the following year, when we failed to do that, if Evans had just backed McCarthy that little bit, we were 1, maybe 2 quality players short of walking that league, because the following year, that was a woeful league. But I think at that point, Evans just started to stop sort of having that enthusiasm and putting the money in. And then it's almost felt like I know most people sort of pretty much can't stand him now because it's been death by 1,000 cuts over the last few years. But I think he almost just decided to give up on it and do the decent thing and make sure we didn't go back into administration again. But, that treading water of just about putting enough in for us to survive, we're just basically, because if we're treading water and or several other teams are putting a bit more money in, you're just gradually going down those leagues. And I think if Evans and Lambert had remained, that would have been what happened.
Absolutely. Let's bring in the Fisherman. Fisherman, you said you're going to bring some calm to the chat.
I think we do need to have a little bit of calm, because didn't we all get all this excitement when Evans came in? I mean, I was in the drum and monkey. I was in the drum and monkey, giving it all the large. I was probably in there with half an all stand in there doing exactly the same, waving 20s here and 10s and 50s and whatever. Look, I mean,
you could say that, but I could say to you, you already know about 100 times more about these sets of people just from that one interview than you did about Marcus Evans before he arrived. Like, all you knew was Marcus Evans had taken charge. You don't know why, don't know what it was for, what their aim was, what the end game was, what the start game was, nothing.
Marcus, I think what it was, we were all sort of suffering from the relegation, weren't we? We were still still very much hungover from it, and we'd failed obviously to get back with Joe Royle, and like I said, the money wasn't there. Marcus Evans came in. We all had heard a lot about this guy as being quite, not Evans, but the group was like $1 billion group. We all got a little bit carried away. I think I'm quietly happy. Don't get me wrong, I am, but I'm also a little bit cautious. I was speaking to a good friend of mine this evening, and he's got quite a few good contacts around, and I just feel that. I have been told there's a couple of stumbling blocks, but whether that's true or not is another thing. We need this to happen. We need to get Evans out of the club. There's no two ways about it. We won't get him out completely. He's going to hold on to some land. He's going to hold on to a stake, isn't he, on the hope that these new owners get in the Premiership. But like the guy who's just been, name's gone. I'm old and I forget things. Sorry? Matt, said, with regards to, other teams that have been bought by Americans, it's not always guaranteed, is it? And there's, I'm a bit, I guess what it is, it sounds a little bit too good to be true. And in my life, my own personal life, I've often found it is too good to be true. It often is. But we got rid of Lambert. Are we being taken down the yellow brick road only to find out there's about 5 different, journeys we can go? It's Ipswich, isn't it? I think we've just become used to us being a little bit let down, I guess, for the last 13 years.
The thing is, Tux, these guys, as Matt said, if they want to commercialise it, well, you need something to commercialise, and you don't commercialise a team in the third tier playing, all due respect, Aqua and Stanley tomorrow night. You need to be playing Bournemouth's next year Championship. Then you need to be playing your Man Cities on a Tuesday night. You don't commercialise playing Aqua and Stanley, and equally to get to that commercialised level, you need to have a decent side. So that alone surely gives you a bit of excitement, a bit of buzz, a bit of
Yeah, I think it's it's an exciting time, and as the fisherman just said, it's a case of it needs to happen. Ultimately, Evans, in the whole time he's been here, as much as he's hopefully going to wipe our debt and stuff like that, it's not worked out. And he's not a football man. I don't really think he's got too much of an interest in terms of football. I know he runs a football club, but really it doesn't seem like it. You got to remember, at the end of the day, this is a guy that didn't reveal his face for 3 or 4 years at the very least. So I just didn't understand it from the word go. When Evans came along, it was a case of, if you're owning a football club, why are you not proud to own a football club? And we were in the Championship at the time. We were kind of going to that next level. If you invest a bit of money, we could have been in the playoffs for a consistent period of time. But there was no face. There was nothing from the man behind the brand, essentially, to say where we were going. And it's continued throughout. And yes, he's done like a video here and there about, especially when Mick McCarthy came just before Paul Hurst, and put himself on camera and stuff like that. What do you want? A round of applause? You're the chairman of this football club. You should be the face of this football club, and that's what I'm hoping. This, whoever the investors are, they need to be the face of this club and have a plan. Whether that marketing strategy takes us to the Premier League, and and advertise the club in the right and proper way. But ultimately, Evans needs to be out of this club. And if he keeps his 5%, he bails us out of trouble with the debt, and he keeps some of the profit in terms of the training ground. Have it, but just does
his business acumen, Graeme? Does his bit really sort of mean this is almost a good thing? Because if he's keeping hold of 5%, if he's keeping hold of land, he sees a future in this. And all we say about Marcus, his dusty wallet and his business acumen have never really been questioned. So the fact for me he's holding on to 5% excites me even more, because he wants what they're giving, what they're selling, this vision.
Is that to me or to Mark?
Graeme.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think it's exciting that he still wants to maybe sort of keep involved to some degree. So yeah, he has got some optimism for the future. But I think probably the thing that excites me the most is that the timing now that we're potentially getting, it sounds pretty done deal that Cook's going to come in the next few days, but we're in that position now. When you look, I think we play, is it Accrington obviously tomorrow night, and then is it Lincoln in a couple of games' time? They're the only two left in the top six, and we appear to have finally, after 2 seasons, learned how to actually beat a top six side over the last 2 matches. But I think the most exciting thing is basically, if you bring someone in, Lambert should have been doing way better with that. We had 53, 54 for sort of professional players. You know, we hear all this garbage about injuries and excuses about injuries. You know, for God's sake, we're in Division 3. He should have been able to put 2 first teams out that should be in that top 2 without any question. And any half decent manager should have a plan A, should have a plan B, and should have been able to get him to perform way better. And it's no mean coincidence when it looks like he was on his way, you know, that we suddenly turn in probably the 2 best performances, or some of the best performances this year, Hull and Doncaster, the last 2 matches. And I think someone that comes in that's a motivator, that can actually recognise who, you know, half the problems probably we've got so many players, but I guess we need 50 plus first team players just to cover for our sports science department. Because, you know, you look at Adam Webster, you look at David McGoldrick, Christ, they'd have been better doing bit parts on casualty, wouldn't they, when they were at Ipswich? they go off somewhere else, you know. Bristol City, I think Adam went to originally, then Brighton, McGoldrick to Sheffield United, and they're playing bloody 40 matches a season. You know, we're lucky if we got them for like 6 half matches, you know, and then they're out injured again. So you've got to ask a question there.
Absolutely. Dave, welcome in. What, you've heard the interview, you've heard some fan thoughts so far. How are you feeling? What's your thoughts?
Oh, before I go, great interview, guys. Brilliant interview. My thoughts are, until I see Sky Sports News or until I see TalkSport saying, I'm still worried. I want him gone. Evans, the guy hasn't got a clue what he's doing, but because he's still in charge, he can literally pull it all out and just can the whole thing going forward. And then we're stuck with him. My philosophy is, what manager would want to come manage for Evans? Simple as. He hasn't got a clue what he's doing. So what managers would want to come here? So I'm praying that if it is Paul Cook, that he's already talking to the old Americans and they've already gave him his contract, told him what he's going to earn and what they're going to do. But if that isn't happening, I don't know what to think, really. So I'm still worried. I'm hoping, but still am worried that if he's still here, I don't know what to think. We're stuck here for eternity, basically.
The only thing... Go on. No, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think it will happen, but I think we, like you say, Dave, we've got to, yeah, exactly. We've got to have some fingers crossed. Evans is not stupid, you know. Like I said, I was talking to mate, and we were saying the same thing. No, I'm talking about regards to what he's doing with this sale. If he wants to hold on to 5% and stuff like that, he obviously sees something, you know. I mean, he came, like I said, Evans came in and he gave Roy Keane some money, but he really didn't what I call, if you were serious about getting to the Premiership back then, we already had a sort of nucleus of a squad, and we just really needed the lower end Premiership quality to get us up and get us promoted. But we never really got that, did we? So with Marcus Evans, it was always like, oh, that'll do. It was never really any effort to get us promoted. He wanted to do it on the cheap. And but I am quietly confident.
There's no plan there, is there? That's the thing. There's no plan there. That's what I've got. That's what I'm going back to. And it's the fact that if there's no plan there, you can't achieve success. And you know, the plan, you know, he talks about his 5-point plan here and there, but really, what's that? You know, it's just to keep the fans happy, sell season tickets. There you go, bish bash bosh. You know, there's nothing there for me that says there's a plan there, and that's why it's paramount that something has to happen. He has to sell this club.
Do you think we'll get a proper Do you think we'll get a proper director of football in this time rather than Lee O'Neill? You know, because I would imagine he's on a fairly good salary to like open the door on the helicopter for Marcus, because I can't see what else he does around the club that's much use at all.
For me, Lee O'Neill, right, where's he come from? He's a school teacher, weren't he? So he's a glorified bloody PE teacher. So when he gets sacked when the new owners come in and they sack him, he'll go back to his half-term holidays. It's as simple as that, really. So what does he do? It's like what Graeme just said. What does he do? He's a mouthpiece. The person before him, Ian Milne, he was a mouthpiece. Simon Clegg, to a certain extent, was a mouthpiece as well. So you have to have a director of football. That's where football's going at the end of the day. And whether you bring in someone like a John Walk or a club legend that actually wants to be the ambassador of this club, or someone that's got a little bit of ounce about them that can to do the business off the pitch. You do need the support.
I heard they asked Leo O'Neill what they put in a Portman pie, and he thought they put a Portman in it.
Mike, appreciate you. I'm going to bring in TJ. TJ, I get a lot of sort of mixed messages in terms of, I'll wait and see what happens, and then we'll wait and see what the plan is. Like, for me, we either slowly fade into non-league football and death, or you jump and you hope the Americans have got the plan that takes over, or you go quicker. Like, we're dying anyway at the moment. We're dying on our arse, let's be honest.
I'm 28 in a few weeks, so I've spent half my life with Evans at the helm of this club.
Oh,
so that's good, isn't it?
No, it's not.
I was working that out, so I just realised how much dross I've had to put up with. But I think the thing I'm most excited about is the first press conference we get from whoever owns us, because that will set the tone of something we've not had in half of my life, basically. I think Marcus Evans' 5-point plan is his 5% stake in the club plan more than anything. So, I'm just looking forward to seeing that first press conference, seeing some positivity. Maybe the turnstiles will get painted quicker and we'll all be better for it.
The thing is, so somebody said in the chat, TJ, that this is like hands-free investment for Marcus Evans. He's got an investment consortium that he can just leave 5% with and see what they can work into magic. It's almost great. And it's not his fault. If it all goes Pete Tong, fans will start calling for somebody else's head. As sort of Matt was saying earlier, he could turn up to games when he wants. He's not the major partner. It's really a stress-free life for Marcus Evans, isn't it?
Well, it has been for 14 years, isn't it? I mean, we've not seen him for most of it. We've only had the pressure turn up in the past couple of years or so. So I think we'd probably walk past him in the street and forget him. I mean, I hope he does all right with his 5% because it means the rest of us are doing all right with it. So,
yeah.
Good luck to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
If Cook comes in before the new owners come in, who gives him the contract? Like, are the Americans telling Evans, like, offer him this, or are the Americans already sort of speaking with Cook? That's what confuses me. That's why I thought Lambert would, like you said in the interview, Lambert would be here until the deal was done. But the fact that Lambert's gone now, how does that work with Cook? Does he, like I said, did Americans interview him and say, right, this is what we're offering you? Or has Evans got to sit there and say, I'll offer you this. This is what they're telling me to offer you. And that's what's a bit confusing and worrying my end on that. And then when
Lambert would have stayed here.
Leo O'Neill did the contract.
Lambert would have stayed here until, Lambert would have stayed here until, at least until it's mathematically possible we can get playoffs for me. But what the kicking point for me was the TalkSport interview where he come out and criticised Evans publicly, and I remember sitting there thinking, if I was Evans, I would not be tolerating this whatsoever. So I think he then went away and probably thought.
So you think Evans sacked him? So you think Evans sacked him, even if this deal wasn't coming in, he would have sacked him anyway because of what happened in the last couple of weeks?
I think so. I think it's based on that. I don't think he was going to sack him until probably April. I think he would have ridden it out a little bit. But I mean, Lambert I think he just wanted to go in the end. I don't think he was ever going to walk because, he had that big payout coming, so he's never going to walk. But he went on national radio. Like, if you're bothered about this club and you want to stay at the club, you don't do things like that.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
No.
You just don't do things like that.
And the thing is, though, Tux, Dave makes a great point there about, who's making the decision. Is that another reason why we're reading in the press, taking our time? Because those things are now being spoken about via Zoom conversations of, right, we've got a manager, you're going to be taking charge. If it all goes through, how are we going to work this then? Because if this is who you want, that's fine. I can go and get sorted out. But who's paying for it, as Dave said?
So what if the Americans wanted Cook and Evans didn't, and then the deal goes through, but then Evans is bought in Cook and then goes, great. I'm now stuck with a manager I didn't want.
I think that would be part of the negotiations, though. They're talking at the moment, and that will be part of the negotiations. Is we're going to get Paul Cook in, probably ask him, what do you think of that? They probably confirmed it. It's all okay, and he'll be there obviously when the new owners come in. So I think it's probably part of the deal. It'd be a bit embarrassing if Evans goes and appoints a manager now, and then they come in and for whatever Paul Cook doesn't get off to the best of starts, and then they sack him within like a month or 2 months. So it's got they want to come in and they want to hit the ground running, don't they? They don't want to piss about. So
and I think
they're talking about it.
And the thing is, no manager worth his salt who's not in the last chance saloon ain't going to come with this over their heads, because if you sign a deal and new owners take charge, you're then walking around for a month, 6 months, a year, with every question being, you're not the owner, you're not this owner's man, you're not the new owner's chosen one. It's only a matter of time. But it's a great question, Dave. Dave, I appreciate it. I'm bringing in Jimmy Bullard. Jimmy, we've not seen players like you for a while, but will we see him again?
I hope so. I just want to go back to that point about Paul Cook. Now, I read on TWT that came from Phil Ham that they've already spoke, the Paul Cook and the Americans. Now, when that was, I don't know, but he says that they have already spoke and they're fine with Paul Cook coming. As far as I'm aware, they'd leave it Marcus to do all the business. That's what he says, But he also said that, the deal, all the forms are with the EFL in Preston, waiting for ratification and all the processes. So this is a hell of a lot further along than what we actually think. But I'm not quite worried about it not going through, because I'm more interested to know that there was more than one offer. So what the hell was Lee O'Neill talking about?
Well, but as Matt Slater said, Tux or Graeme, he doesn't know. Like what? And I said on Twitter earlier, my gardener might know I'm showing people around my house, but he won't know I've got any offers. Like Lee O'Neill might know the club's up for sale or people are viewing it, but he ain't going to know no one's put 17 million quid on the table.
Even if he did, right? The running theme with this club is that they don't contact the fans. They don't let the fans know what's going on. And it's been a running theme since Evans has been at the helm of this club. He doesn't let the fans know because he can't contact people because he doesn't want to show his face. He doesn't want to be responsible for things. And Lee O'Neill is the spokesperson. And it's a running theme of this club. It's a complete joke that there's no idea, there's no identity to it. That's the whole point. That's the whole problem. It's always been like that.
Big time.
There's two things I picked up and one of them was the fact that they're going to put a structure in place, above the manager, which is what we've been crying out for ever since Marcus Evans has arrived. And there's some good people in there. The guy who was with Galatasaray, the guy who was with West Brom. They know football at a high level, so they'll know the sorts of people they need, and that's what we need. Plus the fact them focusing on youth. Yeah, to us and our academy, that's key. Maybe they'll push us further for Category 1 than what Marcus Evans will push us for Category 1. And we can stop losing all these really good young players before we even get a chance. Maybe they'll build dorm rooms for the players instead of having them shacked up in people's houses. Maybe they'll look at all this and say, that's what we need to do. That's what we do over there. I saw an interview with this Brett Johnson, near the stadium. If the players come from far away, they build them a house so they can live in. This is not a fly-by-night organisation. This guy knows what he's talking about, and that's what excites me most. But I think
I'll tell you why I'm more confident about this regime, even though it's not confirmed or anything else. Why I'm more confident about it than I ever have been with Marcus Evans, even from the initial point where he was going to take over, is because the Americans, they already own a sport that they own a sporting franchise. Yeah. Phoenix Rising, they've got them successful and stuff like that. The difference with Marcus Evans is he's not doing anything sport related. He's a businessman, great businessman, but when it comes to sporting, when it comes to sporting teams, Phoenix Rising, this American consortium or whoever they are, they have experience in there. So I'm confident that they can at least know about the club or at least know about the sport and what is behind it and how to run a successful team. So that's why, for me, I'm much more confident about this American regime than I ever have been even from the initial purpose of what Marcus Evans came in.
I think the communication is going to be greatly improved as well, because I know we can slag off Lee O'Neill for not knowing what he's doing, but it's kind of not his fault. And I think put any of us in his position today in front of the media, we'd all be told what to say. It's our job. We can't do much about it. So
thrown to the wolves, he was.
Yeah,
he was,
exactly. So as long as we have that central spokesperson going forward, I think we'll have a better connection with what's going on.
And at the end of the day, can I just say, even if we have this, the structure they bring in with the youth and the hierarchy of the manager, even if they leave, that will be a long-term benefit for us anyway, because the next person will come in and take over that, and it'll still be there. So this is not something that, if that's sort of thing that they're going to do, that's not something we'll lose. That'll be a long-term gain for us, and that we should embrace completely.
Yeah. My only issue with O'Neill was that you can say a word such as "no comment" or "that's not my pay grade." That's Marcus's department. I'm just the chief operator. You're not the owner. Like, you can deflect the question. You haven't got to say what he said. And Matt almost said the same at the start of the interview. I felt where he was almost like, "Well, you didn't have to say what you said."
I guess, does he want to come across frosty like Lambert has done the past few weeks, or try and at least engage?
He ain't going to be here either way, is he? He ain't going to be here. He ain't going to be nowhere near Portman Road.
The thing is, though, he's got to think about himself, though. He's got to think about his own career, isn't he? He's got to think about what he does next.
If he comes out with a no comment or he doesn't answer the question, people are going, "Well, what are you being paid for?" So he's got to make it.
We do that anyway.
I know.
The thing is, he was absolutely hilarious, because he was going from one foot to the other and back again, and his eyes were like blinking and blinking, and it was hardly a sunny day that the sun was getting in his eyes, was it? So total giveaway. He looks even more dishonest than Boris, didn't he?
He got a 6:30 o'clock phone call from Marcus saying, press your schedule for 9:30. Get yourself up to training ground, Lee. And he was like, "Oh shit, what's happened?" Right, Stephen, appreciate you. Paul, welcome in, my man. How are you feeling this evening?
Yeah, good. Sorry, excuse me. Amazing interviews. A couple of really sort of interesting points on here. Is that with a negotiation that's got obviously quite clearly going on at the moment, there is a bit of gamesmanship and stuff that you can and can't say.
That's no comment.
Yeah, but if you say no comment, and literally that you watch the club interview, right, and Lee O'Neill is probably briefed by the press officers there exactly what he has and what he can and can't say, and they asked those direct questions. He gave those answers, so he's basically giving answers that the press office have actually given them, or have told him to say, and that is his job. And Lee O'Neill's been brought in. He's, I've heard that he's very good at his other jobs, but he's got millions of jobs within the club, and I think he's just been brought in completely. He's been pushed into a position completely out of his, out of his depth. And it's just interesting as well with the it was me who made the hands-free comment. So I'm just going to put myself in Marcus Evans' shoes here. So I've got a multi-million-pound, or turns over hundreds of millions of pounds, events and hospitalities company that is that I've had to shut down over the last 12 months. I've got thousands of employees who, I'm paying their mortgages, etc. on that, and I've got to get that business actually going again. After they're allowed to run events, because I have a responsibility to my employees. And I've got Ipswich turnover about £20 million a year. A small business. It's draining my time. People don't like it. A pitch that the Americans would have put to him is that very hands-free thing. Is, look what we're doing elsewhere. Keep some money in the game, and we'll take it over. Like as Martin said, no blame if it goes. No blame if it goes wrong. No hassle. And also as well that he probably, if it goes well, he's probably going to join that group and then put more money in for less hassle for more revenue. So that's, I don't know, that's the way that I would see things if I was if I was Marcus Evans. It's win-win for him.
Yeah, Graeme, it's something fans have often said when season ticket renewals or refunds have come up, but we don't know how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected his business. Well, maybe that's another reason why he's now actively looking at these people, because as Paul says there, he's got other businesses that need to be brought back up to life eventually, and one less issue called Ipswich Town Football Club is one less headache.
So whose responsibility is going to be? Because obviously there's a lot of people potentially owed money for like seeing little or no football this year with the season tickets. Will that be Evans' responsibility, or will it be the new guys' responsibility? I mean,
that'll be the new guys, I'd have thought, which is again another reason why maybe we're seeing a delay. You know, a hold on, maybe, I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I was quite fortunate because I've had a season ticket for, I think it was 42 years up until the start of last season when I stopped it because of the coronavirus and everything. So, start of this season, sorry. So my view was that I'd have my vaccination and then I would get another season ticket without any hesitation. But after the fiasco before the Plymouth away game, we had Marcus Evans doing his ventriloquist act of talking out his mouth and it's coming out of his rear end, swiftly followed up by the ITFC, pretty much just sort of doing like almost appeared at the time an approved sort of statement by the club. And, you know, we were all asking, are they representing us or the club? I took the decision that after the Plymouth game, which I'd already paid for, I wasn't putting another penny into the club until, at the very least, Lambert had gone. I mean, happy days now. It looks like it'll be both Evans and Lambert. So the first thing I did was today, about a couple of hours ago, was buy the iFollow pass for tomorrow, because I'd watched the 17 out of the first 19 games, but I wasn't going to put any more money into the club whilst Evans was running it the way he was, just showing the disdain for the supporters that there was. But I'm bloody happy Lambert's gone now, because I've been really missing it, but I've stuck to my guns. But that's now going to be a tenner a game now, and then a new season ticket next year.
So it looks like Paul Cook, Kempy's saying it's been confirmed. He's been the rumoured investor's choice from the get-go. There's not been another name reported. Obviously, Matt was the one that broke the news. Tux, kick us off. How do you happy with Cook, or would you prefer actually, you know, new investors, new plan, new money? Somebody maybe would have been better.
I still think that Paul Cook is probably the investors' man as well. I think they have been talking about it, but yeah, I mean, overall, I think Paul Cook's a good appointment, and yeah, someone said earlier that, you know, he'd bring some you know, some joy to the club. I think, you know, from his personality. Paul Lambert towards the end was very, you know, deluded, but also very disgruntled in the way he was sort of managing the club as well. Lots of fallouts with the players and things like that. And I feel, you know, as Matt said in the interview, that obviously, you know, he's got a very good track record as Paul Cook. You know, he's been about, and, you know, especially with Wigan as well, when they was going through quite a tough time. I seem to remember reading that when they had to make redundancies, he rung round everyone and made sure they was okay. So, you know, it's things like that aren't always seen, which are good for a manager of a football club, not just the actual team itself.
TJ,
yeah.
Sorry, Mark. Sorry. TJ, Bristol City wanted, Wednesday wanted, Cardiff wanted, we get him. Possibly. Hashtag big club mentality. Do you agree with that? Sorry, Mark.
I think it says more about the man than it does the club. So I think he wants the project, and he's clearly excited by something that we're about to get wind of. So I think there is a good project coming, and I think it's good to see him wait for something that's a long-term thing rather than these basket cases of clubs. So yeah, I'm positive about it. I think he's the right man.
Absolutely. Graeme, we're going to win tomorrow?
I actually fancy our chances now. I fancy we'll get a storming 1-0 win tomorrow.
Okay.
Do you think will Jackson and Nolan be back in the fray now?
Well, I read something on TWTD that said Jackson and Nolan trained today with the first team, but may not be included as it may come too early. Well, they've not been marooned on an island somewhere. They've been training with under 23s. Like one breath we're saying how great Dyer is, next minute we're saying, but they might not be ready. Hang on, what do you might not be?
You'd think even Jackson on the bench tomorrow, he's playing against his old club, isn't he? They still think really highly of him up there, you know, just to get him on for the last half an hour with his speed and everything, just to change the game a little bit. But don't know.
I think ultimately whoever's in charge, you know, whether it's Gill, Dyer, Klug, Cook, whoever, you know, the remaining games until the end of the season, we just need a bit of consistency. And, you know, we've won 2 games on the bounce now. why change the team? You don't need to. Yes, okay, Lambert picked it, but just keep consistency, keep those players playing. Obviously, you have to make some changes here and there with Saturday, Tuesday. But other than that, just keep a winning side. Players play for the shirt, and you keep that shirt based on whether you've won the game and you've put in a good performance. And then if you're not, then that's when the likes of Jackson and Nolan then come in.
But it can't be more than 3 or 4 weeks since Lambert said we're useless with 2 players up front. Then like the last 2 games, we've played 2 players up front, and all of a sudden we're creating chances.
Well, something we've heard is that Gill's been picking the team, and Gill's been doing more. Well, here we go. We'll find out, won't we? Because if things suddenly change, maybe he wasn't. But if things are consistent, like Tuck says, then that might lend some weight. Paul, to finish us off, you can choose any question there I pose to any of the panel. You've got Paul Cook, your man, or you've got a win tomorrow, or when you want to choose.
Oh, yeah. I had 2 main questions. One was more really that one of my friends knows Matt Gill really well.
Love Matt Gill.
So yeah, just I suppose I suppose these are 2 more sort of statements, just backing up what some of the comments of the guys have said. But Matt Gill, one of my friends knows him really, really well, and I've never met him, but I've been told that he's a really lovely guy, and he doesn't have any axe to grind. So I don't think that he's going to be taking any of the what's gone on before from Paul Lambert into what he's doing. And going back to what Matt said earlier on as well, is that that Paul Cook is seen as being a very, very good manager. And what I saw a story, which I don't know whether you guys did, I can't remember whether it was on Twitter or the Ipswich Facebook forum, was that he messaged his friend who was a Wigan supporter. I don't know the guy, by the way. Messaged his mate who was a Wigan supporter. And he turned up at the Wigan grounds, and Paul Cook, he said, was absolutely lovely. And he was invited into his office to watch videos of the match in there with Joe Royle. And he said he was very much like a Joe Royle 2.0. And I love that, because I was a massive, huge Joe Royle fan.
If you're going to be half as good as that, I will be absolutely delighted.
Other than sort of questions, really.
Absolutely. Dawn's gone for a Town win. Stephen's gone for a Cookie might be keeping Gill. I love Matt Gill. I think he's a fantastic coach, a real up-and-comer in the game. And I think in a couple of years' time, I want to be a club that kept hold of him, as opposed to a club that says, "Oh, it's Matt Gill. Oh, I remember him. Oh, yeah, he was under Lambert. Yeah, oh, yeah. Oh, that's a shame, isn't it? Because we've had a few of those, and there we go. Mr. Ipswich Town, Matt Gill looks much older version of Cole Skews. Turbotic is going for a statement 3-0 Town win. Jacob Brown looks like takeover is over. Has he been watching anything we've done for the last hour and a half? If you're going to troll, do it on a different show where you just not been told. Anyway, Jacob, I appreciate the effort. Anyway, if you're new here, hit subscribe. Are the 49 points still on, Gov? They absolutely are, sir. They absolutely are. Trump can make issues great again. That joke's going to be done to death. Matt Wingard's gone 2-1 Town. Town Winston, Stephen Perry. But thank you all for watching, Tux. I appreciate you, Graeme. I appreciate you wherever you may be. TJ, Paul, everybody else who's joined us this evening. And, of course, Matt, who was on earlier with Matt. Outstanding interview. One of the best I've seen in a long, long time. Thank you ever so much. But, yes, with love, with care. See you all tomorrow for the matchday ticket, 6:30. Town win incoming. Hit subscribe.